Video on?
Now it's on. No.
Yours may not be turned on.
Apologies. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Lunde. I'm a defense reporter for Politico, and in this session titled Shared Values, A Stronger Industrial Base, Expanding Partnerships and Cooperation, we'll explore how governments and industry can build the next generation of defense partnerships to deliver the capabilities required for collective security. And with that, I am honored to hand the floor over to the President of the Republic of Korea, Lee Jae-myung, for opening remarks on the matter. If you may, President, please come to the podium.
Thank you.
네, 반갑습니다. 존경하는 마크 루터 사무총장님, 그리고 각국 정상과 국방장관님들을 비롯한 내외 기빈 여러분. 나토 정상회의 방산 포럼에서 여러분과 함께 미래 안보와 산업 협력의 방향을 논의하게 되어 매우 의미 있게 생각합니다. 오늘 저는 민주주의와 자유, 평화의 가치를 공유하는 대한민국과 나토가 더 안전한 세계를 향해 함께 구축해 나갈 방산 협력의 비전을 말씀드리고자 합니다. 오늘날 우리는 냉전 이후 지속되어 온 국제 질서의 안정기를 지나 지정학적 갈등이 상시화되는 불확실성의 시대를 살고 있습니다. 인공지능과 드론, 로봇과 같은 첨단 기술의 군사적 활용이 전쟁의 승패를 가르는 핵심 요소가 되고 있습니다. 또한 무기를 신속하고 안정적으로 생산하는 것과 함께 글로벌 공급망을 얼마나 견고하게 유지할 수 있는지가 억제력의 본질이 되고 있습니다. 이제 전쟁은 전장에서만 결정되지 않습니다. 첨단 기술을 개발하는 연구소와 무기를 생산하는 산업 현장이 곧 국가 안보의 최전선이 되고 있습니다. 방위산업 기반 그 자체가 국가의 생존을 좌우하는 시대, 오늘 우리가 협력을 논의해야 하는 이유입니다. 협력이 진정한 힘을 발휘하려면 기술과 생산력만큼 반드시 갖춰야 할 것이 있습니다. 바로 신뢰입니다. 어떠한 상황에도 공급이 끊기지 않으리라는 확신, 핵심 기술이 반드시 안전하게 지켜지리라는 믿음이 없이 진정한 연대와 협력은 존재할 수 없습니다. 대한민국은 그 신뢰의 조건을 충분히 갖추고 있습니다. 나토와 대한민국은 참혹한 전쟁의 기억을 공유하고 있고 엄중한 안보 환경 속에서 민주주의와 자유, 평화의 가치를 함께 지켜온 파트너입니다. 이러한 신뢰 위에서 대한민국의 방위산업은 나토 동맹국의 협력을 바탕으로 성장해왔고 또 높은 기술적 호환성을 갖출 수 있었습니다. 그 결과 대한민국은 대서양과 유라시아를 넘어 폴란드, 독일, 프랑스, 루마니아, 노르웨이 등 많은 나토 동맹국들과 긴밀한 협력을 이어올 수 있었습니다. 신뢰할 수 있는 파트너인 대한민국의 안정적인 생산 역량과 검증된 기술력이 나토의 오랜 노하우와 합쳐진다면 양쪽의 안보 역량은 지금보다 훨씬 강력해질 것이 분명합니다. 불확실성의 시대일수록 행동은 더 과감해야 하고 협력은 더 빠르게 이루어져야 합니다. 이에 대한민국은 나토와 함께 더 안전한 세계로 함께 나아가기 위한 몇 가지 제안을 드리려고 합니다. 먼저 첨단 기술의 공동 연구를 과감하게 확장해야 합니다. 우리가 함께 연구 개발하는 과정은 기술의 표준을 일치시키고 혁신의 방향을 공유하는 가장 확실한 방법입니다. 한국이 참여하는 나토의 탄약, 우주 분야 협력 프로그램처럼 더 많은 공동 연구 프로그램을 기획하고 또 추진해 나가기를 희망합니다. 나아가 단순히 무기 체계를 거래하는 현재의 방산 협력을 넘어 무기 체계를 함께 연구하고 함께 생산하며 함께 운용하는 한나토 방위산업 파트너십 2.0으로 격상해 나가기를 제안합니다. 국제에너지기구 회원국들이 전략 비축유를 공동 관리하며 에너지 위기에 함께 대응하고 있는 것처럼 방위산업에서도 이러한 지혜가 발휘되는 방안을 함께 만들어 나가기를 기대합니다. 민주주의와 자유, 평화를 지키는 일은 어느 한 나라의 몫이 아닙니다. 급변하는 안보 환경에서 스스로를 지키려는 강한 의지를 가진 국가들이 더 단단하게 연대할 때 세계는 비로소 더 안전해질 것이 분명합니다. 대한민국이 가장 신뢰할 수 있는 파트너가 될 것입니다. 세계의 평화와 번영을 함께 지키는 안보 협력의 동반자로서 나토와 함께 더 안전한 세계를 향해 힘차게 나아가겠습니다. 경청해 주셔서 감사드립니다.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for those amazing opening remarks. I would like to hand it over to, I'd like to hand it over now to Ashley Johnson, President of Planet Labs, for also her opening remarks.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to NATO and the U.S. State Department for inviting me to be here today. It's an incredible honor and privilege to share the stage with President Lee, Minister Braja, and Minister Conroy. In today's shifting security landscape, deep cross-border and cross-sector collaboration has never been more vital. As the president of Planet Labs, I'm here to talk about how commercial space and AI are fundamentally changing and redefining collective defense and deterrence. At Planet, we image the entire Earth every day, and we use AI on top of this data to help our customers make more informed and better decisions. To do this, we operate the largest fleet of Earth observation satellites. This network acts as a continuous line scanner of our globe, creating a living digital twin. We complement this network with high revisit, very high resolution satellites, as well as hyperspectral satellites, which enables us to get closer up, more detailed information about the changes as they're occurring on our planet. And we use AI at the edge to get these insights to our customers faster with much lower latency. The work we're doing at Planet is important for these conversations for three critical reasons. First, we provide an immediate information advantage, perhaps best illustrated by our most advanced users in Ukraine, where they use our data to expose military buildups, providing strategic early warnings. They use as foundational data for operational planning through Delta for drone and tank deployments. And they use our data to conduct rapid battle damage assessment. Additionally, our data is used to support Ukrainian humanitarian efforts, including agricultural impact assessments, demining, and emergency response coordination. Second, our unclassified data provides a common operating picture between allies. We can provide eyes on Russia and other potential threats in times of active conflict, and this same data can be used by NATO and its allies to help monitor and enforce any prospective peace accord. Programs like NATO's Sinbad project, which you can observe in the booth downstairs, leverages Planet's high-frequency monitoring and broad-area anomaly detection. With our partners, we've detected 250 Russian bunkering events in the Baltic per week, thousands of anomalous activities and warnings at air bases and logistics facilities deep inside of Russia. And we're building a system that is poised to scale for global early warning capabilities for our allies. Third, commercial entities like Planet provide immediate access to security capabilities, harnessing the latest innovations that can be a force multiplier for government-owned assets. These technologies are funded by billions of dollars of private capital and are designed for rapid iteration and deployment. For example, the Swedish Armed Forces gained access to our solutions and their first sovereign Earth observation satellite within 4 months of signing a contract with us. This program, initially planned for 2030, was accelerated by over 4 years by leveraging existing security capabilities. Finally, I encourage us as we examine our shared industrial base, to remember a critical truth, and that is an unsustainable planet is always an insecure planet. Consider the exponential rise of artificial intelligence and the expanding global demand for data centers, which is driving unprecedented energy consumption. Resource competition will always be a source of political insecurity and instability. Simultaneously, climate-induced food and water scarcity is forcing mass migrations that create internal and external border pressures. Modern defense must extend beyond kinetic conflict to understanding systemic drivers of future unrest. Combining space technology and AI creates a planetary intelligence, shared unclassified insights that help allies navigate global insecurity by monitoring supply chains, logistics, environmental change, and cross-border activities. In summary, commercial drones, satellites, and AI provide an immediate information advantage via a common operating picture. And while hard assets can take years to deliver, commercial ISR is available in days and weeks. This speed is critical as threats are accelerating and the technology underlying these threats is accelerating even faster. Capabilities designed today but planned to be deployed by 2030 will be obsolete before they're ever put into use. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussion.
Yep, thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. It's very appreciated. I would also like to hear I would be very, very thankful to hear the remarks of Ms. Brage, as well as Minister of Foreign Affairs of Latvia.
Thank you so much, and I'm also a former NATO official, so I'm very happy to be back at the NATO event at this industry forum, and I'm also very happy to be on the panel with my distinguished colleagues, especially with the President of South Korea. We actually had a great event in Seoul on the military use of AI a couple of years ago, which drew quite a bit of discussion further, both among the industry but also political decision makers. And I think we all are integrating lessons from that. A couple of points from me, and I'm sure those in parts have been discussed. So one thing from Latvia that I would like to mention is that the procurement cycles have completely changed, that instead of the usual sort of regular long pre-planned procurement cycles on traditional platforms, for traditional platforms, we have entered into a cycle where technology drives agility and adaptability on a daily basis, I would say, because the way you get the feedback for the industry is from the battlefield itself. Actually, industry maintains contacts with the units on the battlefield itself. And that's not just Ukraine. We have two big ranges in Latvia where we do that. Salonia, which is currently the biggest range of that site, where military gives access to the industry to test multi-domain real-life operations, including with our Ukrainian allies, but also US requirements integrated there. But then in Adaži, which is the other part, and also in the sea and the air, we have experimentation with the 5-6G, where the ACT, NATO Allied Command Transformation, has its annual big exercise among the companies and everything. So that is something where both real battlefield in Ukraine, but also these two capabilities and real-life feedback from the companies have changed the way we do our adaptation. And that is something we are quite proud of. That has given us an edge both on the drones and various unmanned systems, but also on comms equipment for delivery of drones and other capabilities. And that's, I think, something that we would be ready also to share with others and open up to offer others. Thank you.
And finally, I'm happy to hear, or happy to have here, the Honourable Pat Conroy as Minister of Defence Industry of Australia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming so far. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, and it's an honour to be on the stage with the President of South Korea, my ministerial colleague, and representatives of the private sector. Australia, like many countries in this room, faces the deteriorating strategic circumstances. We're seeing intensifying great power competition in the Indo-Pacific. We're seeing the biggest arms race in our region since 1945. And we're responding appropriately, including providing the biggest increase in defence funding in peacetime ever in the history of our country. This year we're spending 2.8% of our GDP on defence. We're also recognising what my honourable colleague from Latvia said, is that we need to move faster. So we're undertaking a huge reform of the defence organisation, moving 40% of the defence budget out of defence into a delivery agency focused on much more rapid capability development and capability delivery. We're also committed to building our sovereign industrial base, but also building partnerships, because I think we need to recognise that if every country in NATO and countries in the Indo-Pacific are all increasing our defence spending, but if we're not growing the industrial base, we're just going to pay a lot more for the same amount of equipment. So we really do need to grow our respective industrial bases and grow our industrial collaboration. And that's what we're really focused on. We've shifting to a focus on co-design, co-development, co-production and co-sustainment with partners, many of them in NATO. We're partnering with Germany on production of Boxer combat reconnaissance vehicles, with Canada for the over-the-horizon radar technology. We're cooperating with Norway to build the first strike missile factory outside of Norway. So we're doing lots of work with NATO countries, as well as industrial collaboration with IP4 countries, including South Korea and Japan and New Zealand. We're also committed to mobilising a series of defence primes in our country that are owned by NATO countries. Think BAE, Thales, Lockheed Martin and Rheinmetall. So our message to you is we desperately need to increase our risk appetite. We need to reduce barriers. We need to get rid of protectionism and just recognise that there's more than enough work for everyone. We just need to find a way of cooperating so that we can grow our collective industrial base. And my final message is that the relationship between NATO and the IP4 is inseparable. We need to work together because we're all facing massive challenges to the rules-based order that needs to be confronted and challenged. And we need to preserve what we've fought so hard to build so far.
So thank you very much for all of your remarks. It's very appreciated. I'd like to start by asking all of you a couple questions according to exactly what you had said. Mr. President, I'd like to start with you. You mentioned in your remarks that defense industrial cooperation should not remain limited to trading of weapons systems, but that it should advance towards building an industrial base founded on shared values. In your view, what task should NATO allies prioritize on to move towards an industrial cooperation model?
방위력 개선은 유럽의 모든 국가들, 그리고 사실은 유럽뿐만이 아니라 전 세계 대다수 국가들이 이제는 당면 과제가 됐습니다. 다만 이 방위력 개선을 위한 여러 가지 조치 중에서 사실 방위 산업 기업들의 성장과 발전이 중요한데, 연구 개발과 생산, 그다음에 이 활용은 사실 수요가 있어야 됩니다. 그런데 대한민국 같은 경우는 아마 여러분들 아시겠지만 전 세계에서 가장 좁은 면적에 가장 많은 군대가 가장 격렬하게 대치하고 있습니다. 대한민국은 지금까지는 방위비를 GDP의 2.3% 정도를 지출해 왔는데, 이제 이거를 3.5% 정도 선으로 올리는 것으로 저희가 계획을 하고 있는데, 결국은 지금까지도 그랬지만 앞으로도 결국 수요, 정부 측의 무기 장비 수요가 얼만큼 많아지느냐가 가장 핵심적인 요소라고 생각됩니다. 예를 들면 유럽 국가들도 각 국가 단위로 사실은 수요를 분산하면 그렇게 크지 않을 수도 있지만, 이걸 하나로 좀 묶어내면 수요는 엄청나게 많이 늘어날 수가 있겠죠. 결국은 지속적인 수요라고 하는 게 잘 관리되어야 된다는 생각을 하고 있고, 두 번째는 정부 간 협력이 매우 중요하겠죠. 각 국가마다 표준도 다르고 생산의 방식이나 아니면 생산의 관행 이런 것들이 다 다를 텐데, 이 표준을 통일하는 게 또 하나 중요한 대책이 될 것 같습니다. 세 번째는 저는 이제 각각의 기업들 간의 협업이 중요하다. 정부 간 협력도 중요하고 표준도 통일할 필요가 있고, 그 기반 위에서 이제 기업들 간의 실질적 협력이 매우 중요하다고 생각합니다. 지금은 이제 각 기업들의 현실적 필요에 의해서 연합도 하고 뭐 공동 개발에 공동 생산도 해나가지만 저는 국가 단위의 협력이 결국은 기업들의 협업을 받쳐주는 형태가 앞으로 매우 중요하지 않을까 그런 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Thank you. Minister Brose, you have somewhat of a unique perspective of being on the Baltic Sea and being right next to the biggest adversary probably for European NATO. And Baltic states have demonstrated that rapidly expanding defense capability is possible when political leadership, procurement, and industry work close together. What lessons should the alliance take from your experience as it seeks to move towards NATO's new capability targets?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think today's decisions at the NATO summit that were announced on the industry part, I think is the right move. So it's not only 37 billion more for defense spending that allies have committed to since 25, but it's also how. Yeah, so the industrial-based development per se. So NATO standards we have NATO standards for traditional legacy platforms, ammunition and so on and so forth. So the next is actually what do we do with technology, what do we do with AI, what do we do with it? So there the question of trust, the question of ability to work together among the companies, to have what the President spoke about, the sort of values-based collaboration, whether it's on AI, whether it's quantum, whether it's others. Overcoming that national egoism is, of course, a precondition for anything. And that's also where the sort of ability to innovate and be agile becomes a military capability, right? Where you don't have to wait for anyone, where you all together advance on a sort of similar speed. Otherwise, if you wait for an ally somewhere, as big or as small it is, at a decisive time, you might be held back. So I think that is a joint interest. Also, I would like to say that legacy platforms and munitions still are relevant. We are not arguing for sort of cancelling the traditional long precision strikes or artillery or targeting or anything. No. That is needed, but that comes hand in hand with the ability to use the most modern technology. And I think that is something where our lessons learned for Latvia are very applicable, very applicable.
One connecting point to the modern technology is obviously the supply chain and rethinking potentially the supply chain that we have in the defense industry. And I'd like to come to you, Minister Conroy, with that. Australia has become an increasingly important defense industrial partner for Europe and North America. And as supply chains become more global and sometimes even more shaky, how can trusted partners cooperate to make our collective industrial base more resilient, more innovative, and more responsive from your perspective?
Well, I think there's a couple of areas there. I think we need to think about how we change the mentality to some extent. It's an industry built on sell than build, whereas we need to shift to build them sell. And that's easier said than done. You can do that in the civilian sector where you've got 1 million customers, so you've got confidence that you're going to have a few sales. In defence, you've got a limited number of customers. You've got governments that occasionally change their minds about procurement. So how do you get industry to embrace more risk is a big challenge. But in terms of the supply chain issues deeper down, I think you need to identify where countries and companies have expertise and fund their development into it. We run a global supply chain program. We don't run an offsets program. We don't dictate that 50% of the budget for a project must be spent in Australia. What we do is two things. One, if you make commitments to a certain percentage spent in Australia, we'll contractually enforce that. But more importantly, we'll fund global supply chain offices into the large primes where we say, we don't care what Australian company you work with, but we guarantee you there'll be some that will add value to your production across the whole globe. And that way they don't live and die on individual projects. They add value to the supply chain, the prime, in a way that is commercially feasible. And so that's why we're winning work for our SMEs into European and US companies. So that's about being more flexible and being less protectionist, but being pragmatic in the end about how you'll find these deals.
Ms. Johnson, coming to you with that, governments have set really ambitious political objectives for defense production, especially within the past 4 years. From the industry's perspective, what policy changes would have the greatest impact in enabling companies to invest and innovate and deliver capability at the speed that the strategic environment really demands?
Yeah, we've heard a lot of talk today about policy changes that I think could be really helpful. So Secretary General referenced a red tape bonfire, right? Let's not prioritize process over getting to the warfighters the technologies that they need. It's concepts like collective interoperability, so making sure that as we're procuring technologies and building for our sovereign capabilities, we're thinking about how these capabilities are going to interact and ultimately create shared intelligence. It's being more flexible in what you procure, so considering procuring existing services so that you can get up and running quickly, in parallel to sovereign, more exquisite assets that are going to take longer to get into deployment. And then finally, I appreciated Sakura echoing a comment earlier today about it's not necessarily what the 5-star believes they want, but rather what the person at the front line is saying that they need. And with that, it's a shift from defining the technology that you need to procure and instead defining what the problem is that you're trying to solve and let industry come forward with the proposals that are going to leverage the latest technologies and latest innovations. Because with all due respect to everyone here, technology is moving so quickly that you really should rely on industry to understand what is possible to solve the problem as defined, rather than creating a process around technology requirements and really dictating that back to industry.
With that, I'd like to hand the final question to you, Mr. President. Today's session emphasized that cooperation amongst government, industry, and trusted partners is the key element in strengthening the resilience of NATO's industrial base and its collective defense. What role should the government play, from your opinion, in order to enable such cooperation in a better manner?
제가 이제 기조발제에서도 미리 말씀드린 것과 관련이 있어 보입니다. 일단 이게 각 국가 단위로는 그 수요도 크지 않고 또 기술 개발도 한계가 있기 때문에 결국은 우리가 가진 자산과 역량을 최대로 하나로 모으는 게 중요합니다. 그러려면 국가 간 신뢰 확보라는 게 매우 중요하죠. 예를 들면 이해관계를 같이 하는 유럽 국가들 간에는 뭐 좀 더 쉽게 아마 힘을 합칠 수 있을 겁니다. 그러나 유럽을 넘어서서 예를 들면 IP4, 예를 들면 일본, 한국, 또 뉴질랜드, 오스트리아 이쪽과의 관계를 좀 더 확장해서 서로 시장을 좀 함께 공유한다든지 또 기술을 공유한다든지 실제로 공동 생산을 한다든지 또 동일한 표준에 의해서 상호 운영성을 넓혀서 함께 사용한다든지 그 경험을 또 피드백하는 이런 협업의 시스템을 정부가 만드는 게 매우 중요하겠다. 근데 그 근본은 결국 국가 간 신뢰가 아닐까 그렇게 생각합니다.
Trust is definitely vital. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much to the ministers. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, so much for your time. We hope to see each other again the next year in Albania.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much indeed. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking our last panel there once again. Thank you so much. Last panel, we can do it. It's been a remarkable, very rich day, but we are coming to an end, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're feeling as inspired and challenged as I do. And now to take us home and wrap up our amazing day, I am delighted to welcome back to the stage Tarja Jakola, NATO Assistant Secretary General for Defense, Industry, Innovation and Armaments. Tara, the stage is yours for one last time. Thank you so much.